Raphael, it must have been an extraordinary experience for you. Tell us how you found yourself among the crowds.
Um, I was out like many other people, going for Halloween, meeting friends. But when I arrived in Itaewon, it was already very obvious from the beginning, from 7 or 8 p.m., that it was extremely crowded, overcrowded. In fact, there were too many people on the pavements. It was spilling out onto the roads full of cars. But as my evening kind of came to an end towards 10 p.m., we decided that we were not going to stay in this area because we simply could not move at all to go to any of the bars or clubs whatsoever. So we started heading towards the subway station towards 10 p.m. or 10:15 p.m. when all of a sudden we started to hear sirens and fire brigade trying to get through all of the crowds, and then ambulances also were trying to get through. At this point, no one really knew what was going on. I was in front of Itaewon station, and there was two policemen standing on top of their car, telling people to leave the area immediately. And they were trying to chase people desperately, but there are hundreds of people coming into Itaewon from the subway station. No one was really listening. No one really knows what's happening. But clearly there was something going on, and a big incident was unraveling at that time. And within minutes, we could see on social media that people were uploading pictures. It was only 10 or 20 meters away of people laying lifeless on the floor, dozens and dozens of people, and fire services performing PCR on all of these lifeless bodies on the floor.
Raphael, have we been able to ascertain what exactly happened? Was there people have been talking about narrow alleyways, which I think shoot off the sort of the main road of where you were, either side of the subway station, people being trapped there. Do we know if it was something specific that triggered off the crush? It's difficult to understand how something like this could have happened.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate because we don't know,
We don't
and
know yet.
there's been no official word. However, there are many people. I interviewed many people today who were there last night, and they claim there was, maybe a famous YouTuber who was there, and so many crowds got excited and tried to get to this celebrity within this tiny space. I cannot confirm whether this is true or not.
Mhm.
But the matter of fact is that this small alley was overcrowded and people were trying to come in and out. And based on footage on social media, we can see that people started to collapse to the floor. And I guess one thing led to another, and people started to be crushed on top of one another, which eventually led to their death.
You mentioned in the piece that you've written for the press of your experience that, of course, this was the first time that Halloween celebrations were able to take place since COVID. Do you think that that was the contributing factor? You had more than average numbers that would have traditionally attended something like this, plus the fact that the
Ye-
authorities seem to have not been prepared for that increase in
Yeah,
numbers.
absolutely. I've been going to this area on and off for the past 10, 11 years, and it can get quite crowded. Halloween is probably the most crowded it will be, but this was definitely the most crowded I've ever seen Itaewon. The fact that people were walking among the cars to try and access wherever they were going shows how many people there were. And like you said, with COVID, this was one of the first kind of big major parties that people could finally attend without any restrictions. But I think this Halloween night has always been a popular night with tens of thousands of people, and this is nothing new, and it's nothing that authorities did not know in advance. So the big question is, why was there no crowd control. To be honest, I don't think there was much crowd control in previous years. And I guess since there has never been an incident like this, it's never really been an issue and it's never been on people's radars.
But you also describe, just said just a moment ago to us, that you had officials standing on top of cars urging people to return home. Now, could you return home in the midst of what sounds like streets that were frozen solid by the amount of people who were there? It's all very well to tell people go back, but could you?
Good point. I don't. In my case, I was going into the subway station, and I was concerned of catching the last train back, which ends towards 11:30. I was able to get into, but even getting into the subway station was a nightmare. There's just too many people. And once you miss the last subway, then there's nowhere to go. There's no buses, there's no subway, there's a shortage of taxis at the moment. And anyway, taxis would not have been able to come through because there were so many people. So I understand that even if within those 20 minutes, you had 20 minutes to rush onto the last subway, otherwise you were stuck in that area. So like you said, where could people have gone? That was another issue. And I do know that Seoul City did add a few more subways and buses that started a lot earlier than scheduled. But I understand that a lot of people were simply stranded in Itaewon until the early hours of the morning.
We've been informed that the authorities have declared national mourning. 153 people have died and a further 82 have been injured. Of course, there have been difficulties. You can't help but see there's horrific images of parents, of relatives, of people coming down to the scene, trying to find out what's happened to their loved ones. How are the authorities being able to deal with informing people whether or not their friends and family have been there?
I mean, authorities, emergency services, and Seoul City have set up some special hotlines for people to call, and whether they have concerns or they are unable to locate some of their loved ones, because obviously they still have to identify bodies. I do not know if there are any left, but there are still, as I understand, there are still some concerns of people missing or unaccounted for. There have been, this is an international district, and among the 150 deaths, there were approximately 20 foreign nationals. And I understand that at least earlier today, it was very difficult for foreign nationals to call up if they couldn't speak Korean. There was a free interpretation service, but that was only provided on Monday. I think the government has stepped that up a bit, and they might be able to get assistance in English. Otherwise, all of the embassies, all the major embassies in Seoul have been asking their nationals, if they are concerned, to call the embassies, who will coordinate with authorities.
Okay. Raphael, thank you so much for giving us your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.